Hi, everyone, and welcome to Autism Hope Library. I am really excited about this next guest. You've seen him before. If you haven't seen his interviews in the past, go back in the library and watch him because he is just full of information. He is one of my favorite people. He is Devin Houston from Houston Enzymes. Hi, Devin. Welcome.
Hey, Kristen. Nice to see you again.
Well, I just love our conversations. I learn a lot about digestion and poop. We were just talking about it. So
I can't keep the smile off my face.
So we're going to be talking about, ways, basically the topic is the difference between probiotics, prebiotics, and enzymes and their role in autism. But really, it all does come down to poop. And so this is all going to all come together. You guys will see that. And so before we get started on this amazing topic today, just for those that maybe are still learning about who you are, we have a lot of people that are kind of brand new to this autism world. Can you just give a brief background of why you're so passionate and what you do?
Well, sure. I always said I started traditionally as a scientific researcher, went to med school, learned the language of medicine, and instead of getting an MD, I got a PhD in biochemistry. I did research at University of Virginia for a while, and then St. Louis University Medical School. I worked in the laboratory that discovered the marijuana receptor or the cannabinoid receptor, and that's another topic we get into, talking about difference between CBD and THC and all that stuff. So keep that in mind. And that was very productive. I got a few publications out of it and such, but I was getting close to 40, and I was thinking that I really needed to do something that I could see the more immediate effects of my work. So I got an offer for a position as Director of Research and Development at an enzyme manufacturer in Missouri. And so it wasn't far from St. Louis. So I started working there. While there, one of the salespeople came up and said, we've got a client a company that works, their clientele are basically families dealing with autism. And they have special dietary needs, and their kids are sensitive to wheat and dairy and other foods, and they want to know if you can make something that could help them. They have all these restrictive diets. They can't take. They got to be off gluten and casein and soy and corn and all these things. So this was fairly novel to me, but I put something together. Gave it to the company, they field tested it, came back with really good feedback, and that was all in 98, 99, and from there, I got more interested in the science of why that particular enzyme product was helping these kids so much. So in the investigation, we found that there was an activity in one of or several of the enzymes that we did not know existed in those blends, and it was called we called it DPP4. And interesting enough, we won't go into details about it, but it was very helpful, and it played a really big role in helping with some of these food intolerances. So again, I stayed on as a scientific liaison for that company, went to autism conferences, met parents that are dealing with conference and heard their stories about the kids. And it kind of just took me away more from just the science to more of what's happening with people. And I realized they educated me on autism and the things that families have to deal with, and just 24/7, the problems. And so I made this decision that I was going to leave the company, start my own company, and just basically devote it exclusively to working to make more products that would help with the digestive needs of the autism community. So that was 20 years ago.
Wow.
And we're still here and bigger, better than ever. So we distribute worldwide. I've gone to countries like Ukraine, Romania, Norway, uh, Australia, to talk about how enzymes help. So it's been a very interesting journey, so to speak. So we're still in it. We're still going to be here at least another 20 years. My my son is probably at some point going to start take over more of the day-to-day stuff, so I can play with my granddaughter. And but I'll always be around for consulting, and I like my customers really well. Some of them are been around for the whole 20 years. So yeah. So now we're focused on just trying to find, identify enzymes and enzyme products that can help with. We've kind of expanded. The autism community will always be the heart of our business, and we're trying to expand a little bit because there's other groups of people dealing with other food issues. There's diets like keto diet, paleo, and we realize that enzymes can help with those things too. So we're trying to get the word out more past just the autism community, but I made a commitment to never abandon that community because they stuck with us, and by God, we're going to stick with them. So, and autism isn't going away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're here for the long haul.
Well, and I've seen you at conferences for years and years, probably at least 16 years now. And,
oh, yeah.
And I see your line is always long, and people are, you don't leave until the last person is done answering.
Oh, yeah, no, they paid to be there, and yeah, they're gonna get their money's worth.
So I love that. So, well, I'm excited about, the topic today because I think a lot of people are confused between probiotics, prebiotics, and enzymes and the role they play in autism. So let's just kind of break it down. What are the basic differences between probiotics, prebiotics, and enzymes?
Sure. Well, let's talk about probiotics because everybody by now has heard about a probiotic. Those are the bacterial cultures you find in yogurts or fermented foods. Probiotics basically are just bacteria, and you have similar bacteria in your lower gut and the colon and such. And these bacteria are what ferment food. They do the finishing work on the food after basically most of the digestive process has occurred. So there's probably 100 trillion bacteria in your gut. And at one point we thought that they were just sort of parasitic, that they just kind of hung around living off the stuff we ate. But we now know that they contribute much to the health of an individual. They also produce compounds that get released from the gut and can communicate with the brain. There's this two-way communication between gut and brain. So they're important for health. They're important for gut regularity. And there's probably a lot more we still have to find out about them. There's so many types of probiotic bacteria, the lactobacillus, bifidobacteria, Saccharomyces, and that is probably going to expand into even like fungal organisms and yeast. You need a little bit in your gut. You don't want a lot of yeast naturally. You don't want yeast to take over your gut, but you need a little bit. There's also certain parasites that are actually found to be helpful. And we live in such a clean, sterile world. We want to avoid the bugs and the worms, but we're finding out now that some of those can be helpful. So those will probably all be included as probiotics. Now, prebiotics are basically the food or the fertilizer for the probiotics. They are what the bacteria in your gut feed on. That's where they get their energy. They ferment the prebiotic fiber, and this is found in foods like it's a big list. Let me find it here. Apples, artichokes, asparagus, bananas, barley, berries, chicory. That's a big one. Um, Things like greens and dandelion, onions, uh, beans and peas, those type of things, all contain prebiotic fibers that bacteria can use and munch on and helpful. And the type of prebiotic can also determine which bacteria thrive and which don't. So by changing your source of your prebiotics, you can also change the type of probiotic. Now, what do enzymes have to do with all those?
Well, that would be like if you had, like, let's say sauerkraut, which is, I think, a prebiotic food, right? And then you had banana, you said was a prebiotic. I'm assuming that those maybe feed different probiotics.
Yeah, that's what we're finding out. Probiotics definitely have preferences for certain prebiotics. And the thing is, both good bacteria and bad bacteria can feed on the prebiotics. So we want to be a little bit selective. And there's a lot of articles I was looking over just to prepare for this, that there's a lot of current research going on about how you can use different prebiotic foods to help out certain species of probiotics. The other thing is, when you're talking about probiotics, you're talking about fermentation. And well, let me back up. Let me talk about enzymes first, because that's my main thing. Enzymes come into play on several things. Enzymes are produced within the digestive system. There's some in the stomach. Most of them come from the pancreas, and they are what break down the proteins, starches, carbs, and fats in your foods to smaller compounds that can be absorbed where you can get the nutrients out of, and that all happens upstream in the small intestine, in the stomach. The digestive enzymes reproduce basically are from the pancreas after the stomach. If you take enzyme supplements, they're acid stable, they can work in the stomach, and so they provide a little help 2 or 3 hours before the pancreas comes into play. And then there's a few enzymes that are found in the intestinal lining that come into play with food as it gets a little bit further down in the small intestine. But once the food leaves the small intestine, you don't really want bacteria in the small intestine. There's something called SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So the gut tries to keep bacteria out of the small intestine, but we want it in the lower intestine and the colon. So all the food that's been broken down by the enzymes upstream should be broken down to a certain consistency and a certain small molecular size for the bacteria to feed on. And that will allow bacterial fermentation to occur. The bacteria or the probiotic bacteria have their own set of enzymes that are completely different from what humans produce. So they do the finishing work, and they convert a lot of the compounds they get from the prebiotic fibers. They get that and make things like short chain fatty acids, like butyric acid. It's very important for the cells that line the colon. That's their chief source of nutrition. So you're producing these short chain fatty acids that keeps the colon healthy. They're anti-carcinogenic. If you want to lessen your chances of colon cancer, you want to make sure you have a good population of good bacteria going on in the colon, and that they're being nourished well. So enzymes, prebiotics, and probiotics, they all intermingle. They all help each other. So it's like the 3 legs of a stool, all very important.
What I think is really exciting, though, is that I feel like more and more people are hearing the word enzymes, because it used to be like you'd say enzymes and people would be like, oh, is that those things from the detergent commercials that like eat up the stains on the jeans, right? And now we're realizing like, oh, wait, no, this is something we actually use for digestion. And, probiotics, I feel like people are really hearing that word more and more, but now prebiotic is like a new thing. And which is fascinating what you're talking about, though, is it got me thinking. So basically the probiotics are picky eaters is basically what you're saying, because the probiotics aren't exactly, this prebiotic food. Maybe they like that one, maybe they like this. And so all these different probiotics are kind of picky on what the thing they like to eat off of. Is that right?
Sure. Right. You're seeing, well, probiotics really started getting popular in the lay population when Jamie Lee Curtis started doing
The yogurt.
commercials about yogurt. And she didn't even mention the word probiotic. She just talked yogurt and how it was good for your health. So that was kind of the intro. So now you're going to start seeing things about prebiotic fortified foods, and you'll see them. Usually they use this. It's a big long word called fructooligosaccharides or galactooligosaccharides, and they're usually abbreviated FOS or GOS. You can see it on the label, in the supplement facts box or in the ingredients. You'll see that in there. And those are strings of fructose or galactose, which are sugar molecules, linked together in a certain way. And that's what really the bacteria really like to eat. And so when you eat a food that's fiber. Now, one thing I recommend you get your fiber, your prebiotic fiber. You can get it in a supplement form. You can get it in a capsule with FOS and GOS. It's much preferable to get it from whole foods, from fruits and vegetables, like the list I just talked about. Because there's other nutrients, but after the enzymes have broken down all the rest of the food, there's the fructose, the FOS and the galactose and the GOS that's in the food is left and exposed, ready for the bacteria to chew on and ferment. So that's the whole lovely scheme of it all. And the enzymes work to break down the food to a certain amount, and then the nutrients from the food, except the indigestible sugars, we call them sugars, but the FOS and GOS can't be broken down by the enzymes we take or that we produce in the body. And you don't want them to, because you want them to be there for the probiotic bacteria. So the enzymes chew up everything else, leave the fiber, leave the prebiotics nutrients for the bacteria. And they go on to chew and use it and then make the short chain fatty acids, which are all absorbed. So that's in the theory and the optimum perfect way it all works. And the problem is when it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? And I know we want to get to how does that, you've heard all this, and how does that apply to real life situations? Well, if you have a dysfunctional gut, if you're experiencing a lot of constipation, diarrhea, a lot of bloating and gas, there's something going on. There could be a bacterial overgrowth, or there may not be enough probiotic bacteria working in your gut. Maybe you were on systemic antibiotic therapy for a long time, and you killed out the bad bacteria, but you also killed out a lot of the good bacteria. So what do? Well, think about your lawn. And you want your grass to grow, you want to fertilize it. But if there's a lot of weeds growing in your lawn, you don't want to throw a bunch of fertilizer on the grass and the weeds, because the weeds are already there to have a head start. You're just feeding the grass, you're also feeding the weeds, which are often stronger, have a head start, and they grow faster than the grass. So best thing to do is work to get rid of the weeds in your yard, best you can, and then start throwing in the fertilizer. So in your gut, the weeds would be the bad bacteria, the Clostridia, the bad yeast, all that stuff that is taken over and is competing for the good resources that the good bacteria need. Get rid of them, even if you have to use some sort of antifungal medication. It's worth it. Get rid of those bad bugs. Then start feeding the good bugs. Then you want to start adding in prebiotics, oral probiotics, trying to refeed. It's really difficult, though, taking oral probiotics, because everyone's gut is different. And some species of probiotic may do well in your gut, Kristen, but not in my gut. So we can't assume that, your neighbor that says, oh, yeah, this one probiotic just did great with me. You just can't assume that it'll work for you. And sometimes just trial and error finding the right bacteria for you, for the right probiotic. So that's a little trial and error, but once you can help that thing along by just getting the prebiotics food into your diet. And this can be problematic because a lot of those prebiotics, we mentioned them, cabbage and broccoli and bananas and beans and legumes, and especially when they're in a raw food form, which is kind of what we want to do, can be hard on the gut, especially if you're going from a diet that didn't have much of those to begin with. So people experience a lot of gassiness, a lot of bloating, bowel movement changes. They don't like it. They don't want to be out in public and all of a sudden have a gas attack. So they tend to avoid those foods, which is totally wrong thing to do. Well, here's something that can help is just take enzymes along with those food to help break it down and get the food moving faster so it's not sitting around in your gut fermenting. It's getting broken down and getting down to the lower colon where the bacteria can get to it and start doing their own fermentation and working on it. So it takes a little bit of work. It takes a little bit of trial and error, figuring out what's doing what. But you shouldn't get discouraged because those who do find it get good results. And the thing is, even if you don't have a dysfunctional gut, if you're just changing diets, maybe you want to lose weight, so you go from a regular diet of processed foods to a keto diet. You start adding more fats, maybe more meat, oils and such to your diet. Well, all of a sudden, your gut's not used to the change, and so that's going to upset things a little bit. Gut may not like that. The bacteria in your gut may not like that either. So, enzymes can help the transition period between diets when you're changing your diets or your eating habits. Take the enzymes, because the enzymes do most of their work in the stomach. And by the time the stomach empties, a lot of that food's been broken down enough to where the gut can handle it a lot easier. And it's not as hard on the gut to process the rest of the food. So that's one thing. With all the proliferation of different diets, my goodness, a lot of people will say, "Oh, I tried it, but it just made me sick. It just upset my stomach." Well, it's because you tried to do things too fast. You do make the transition slow. Use the enzymes to help the transition, and give it some time. Don't push it. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty much the overall medical prognosis on gut health as far as prebiotics and enzymes and probiotics.
So now how do you know, if your child, it seems like everybody needs this, so not just the children. And when we say children, we mean children of all ages. So if you guys are watching, it doesn't matter if you're 2 or 52, you're somebody's child. So we always use the word child. But how do you know if, your child or yourself need probiotics or enzymes or a prebiotic? Or is this just something that everybody can do to make themselves feel better? And especially those with autism, because I know a lot of individuals with autism are having digestive issues, and people will tell me, "Oh no, they poop." But when you ask them about the poop, it's not a healthy looking poop. So maybe we should even talk about what that should look like. And then even their behaviors, a lot of kids walk on their toes, which, as we know in the autism community, that could be constipation. Not always, but often that's a sign of constipation. We see kids with red cheeks or dark circles, red ears. That's also a digestive issue. A lot of people don't realize that, or sometimes even things on their arms. Again, another digestive issue where when I talk to families, "Oh no, they poop." Well, how often do they poop? Once a week. Well, that's not normal.
No.
Or they'll say, oh, they poop every day. Well, what does it look like? Well, fine. Oh, but they're really hyper and they only want these certain foods and they don't sleep well at night. So even if they are pooping, let's say every day, that does not mean that they're digesting the food and absorbing the vitamins and nutrients and minerals the way that they should. And so there's a lot of clues that you can be looking for when you're looking at, does my child need enzymes? Obviously, if you guys know who I am in any sense of like ever seen anything I've ever done when it comes to interviews, I love enzymes. I'm a big, huge, cheerleader for enzymes. I think everybody in the world needs enzymes. I think it's the spark of life. And so, but, for your medical, background, Dr. Houston, what do you think? Do you think that everybody, doesn't matter what age? I'm thinking the whole family needs it, but what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking about my little 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and trying to get a kid to eat, even if they're on the spectrum or neurotypical, is a challenge. She loves her yogurt. She gets these little Toy Story bottles of yogurt, and she loves her yogurt. So she's getting a lot of probiotics that way. She likes carrots. Go figure. She likes them sliced up, but she likes to dip them in Italian dressing. And she won't eat it without the Italian dressing. So she's doing that. But I'm thinking she's crunching those carrots. I said, good, she's getting that fiber in there. She needs the bulk. Because kids, being kids, she's getting ready to be potty trained. We're trying to introduce her to the toilet and all this stuff. And there's a tendency to hold it in. They don't want to poop, and then when they do, it's a huge mound of, this hard stuff like that. So, best way, to check is just what does the poop look like? If they're in a diaper, is it a smeary, smelly, just all over the place, hard to clean up, loose stool? Well, that's obviously not right. What you're looking for is just a smooth, round-shaped, S-shaped bowel movement, about 10 or 12 inches long. Sometimes it just comes out, constipation's a big problem, and when they finally go, it's just these huge, round blocks of impacted poop. So, you just look at that and so what can we change? Well, you got to find ways, puree carrots, celery, some veggies, and put it in, make a little smoothie out of it. Not say don't put a bunch of sugar and stuff like that in it, but just see if they'll take a little stevia or a little, honey, or if they're old enough, if they're past the age of 2, they can usually take a little honey without a problem. But there's lots of apple juice. Apples are sweet, so add in fruits to the thing and just get them to be able to take more of these fibrous vegetables and fruits in their diet. Make a game of it. It's so easy to get discouraged and just let them have a cookie or a donut or something, like that, and that's not going to help. Yeah, they may be getting calories, but that's not really the nutrition they need. But nice thing is when kids start eating solid food, they can start thinking about taking probiotics and enzymes and that type of thing. So they often get them help. There are enzymes that can soften stools. The nice thing about enzymes, especially for seeing large stools and such, is that they break down food much more thoroughly, and so that more of it gets absorbed and less goes through as waste. So you can reduce the size of those huge stools and make it easier to pass. Because one thing about kids, if it hurts to poop, then they're not going to want to poop, and that's why they'll just keep it in there and not try. Even my little granddaughter has had some that were obviously very painful for her to pass, and we make adjustments accordingly. It's like, all right, more carrots, more carrots and less yogurt, because the yogurt is just a solution there of whatever. But there's other things you can just try to introduce them to these things, but you have to do it kind of gradually. Again, you don't want to upset their microbiome in the gut too quickly. So make the changes gradually and kind of ease into it and just see. But of course, if things are chronically the same, you don't see changes, then by all means see your pediatrician and get some help from there. You don't want to you want to eliminate any kind of serious medical problems. So we always say make sure your doctor knows what you're doing as far as diet, enzymes, probiotics, and prebiotics.
And
I know the biggest.
the whole family can take a probiotic, a prebiotic.
Sure, and that's usually what happens. In my experience, parents were buying enzymes for their children, seeing good results, and then they themselves take it.
Mhm.
Even 25 years ago, when I started taking enzymes, I didn't think I had an issue until I started taking enzymes and realized how much better the digestive process can be. So, yeah, it's really, everyone's, I can get casual conversations and talk about enzymes. And I say, well, yeah, my stomach's fine. And I go like, well, really? So, yeah, there's all sorts of stories in the last 20 years we've encountered. Wives have gotten their husbands on enzymes and, made their lives much better because, the wife doesn't want the husband around farting all the time or, so it's like, honey, I really love your chili. Let me have a third bowl of it. And then she goes, no, not unless you take these enzymes. So, yeah, or you're sleeping on the couch.
I love it. So enzymes can
Yeah.
save marriages, is what you're saying. So I
There you
love
go.
that.
Yes,
And
definitely.
so with those that are, have the diagnosis of autism, what message do you want? Like, I guess, when you're thinking about probiotics, prebiotics, and enzymes, how does that play a role with autism? Is it behaviors, digestion, I guess all of the above?
Well, yeah. One thing we found right after I started getting into it that behaviors are definitely linked to gut health. And some of it's just acting out. If it's painful, if there's bloating and you see your child pressing their stomach against the arm of the couch or the sofa, they're trying to relieve the pain and the gas that they can't pass the gas or get the gas out of their stomach. That's why they're so bloated and it's painful. And they find that it helps when they put that pressure on their stomach. So you look, especially if your child is nonverbal, you have to look for these clues.
Mm-hmm.
But other acting out, if your kid is just crying and emotional for no other reason you can't find, then look to the gut. Maybe the gut is causing pain. You know what it's like to when your gut is cramping or you're dealing with bloating or excessive gas. It's not a good feeling. So kids especially are going to be more sensitive and they're going to show that out. They're going to express that emotionally. So you look for those kind of clues, and then you just try to stake out a plan. Definitely go to other parents who've dealt with this kind of thing. There's so many boards and forums and groups out there that are willing to share and their experiences and be helpful. We've got a resource. Parents and customers can always email me and ask a question. Go to our website. You can at HoustonEnzymes.com, and you can find that info along with articles and presentations I've given at autism conferences and such. So, we're just another tool for parents to use, and we want to help and make sure. So, yeah, enzymes are definitely more well known than they were 20 years ago. So,
Can you take an enzyme, probiotic, and prebiotic? Can they all be taken together?
yeah, I would say for prebiotics, there's a little bit of care. If you're on the FODMAPs diet, the FODMAPs diet, you may not want to take a lot of prebiotics. Or if you have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, you might want to think twice before starting with prebiotics, because that could exacerbate some of the symptoms of those conditions. But enzymes and probiotics, yeah, they can be taken together. Always urge caution with the prebiotics. Try to do it with a whole foods. Start slow, and with, ease into it. If you can buy FOS or GOS as a supplement in a capsule, but that's can be pretty explosive stuff if you get my drift. A lot of people try it once and then never again. So just just kind of use common sense, look up the literature, and do that. But for the most part, probiotics and enzymes, yeah, you can take them together. Probiotic enzymes are acid stable. They survive the stomach and actually work in the stomach. Probiotics, for the most part, are not, though there are a few varieties. My manufacturer has one called DE111 that is acid stable, heat stable, and has also been found to help with occasional constipation. So that's one probiotic that's getting more popular. And there's so many different probiotics. Like there's probably 100 different types of bifido and lactobacillus, and they do have different properties and different actions. It would be probably too much for the layperson to find out what each one does and how it acts on their own individual gut health. But there are some things that, some generalities that you can apply to all of those. Bifidobacteria seem to be found more in young children's guts. So that's something that's probably more helpful for young kids. Lactobacillus, you can, they're acid-loving bacteria that are prevalent in dairy products a lot. I know some people are dairy sensitive, so they can't take the whole form, but there are capsule forms of those, so you don't have to take the milk or cheese or yogurt that might bother you. So yeah, again, there's a lot of resources out there. I don't expect you to remember all this just from one video. So do your research, do the review, check out different sources, different companies. I'm not, honestly, our enzymes help a lot of people, but there are other enzyme companies as well, with different products, different combinations of enzymes. There's no one best enzyme. The best enzyme product is the one that works for you. Mm-hmm. So again, a little bit of trial and error, and just find out. So talk to the companies, form a relationship with the company, and make sure they have someone there that's willing to talk to you, and not talk down to you, but also not just give you scientific jargon that you can't understand. So, because that's going to be useless. So, like I said, my company is here to help. There's other companies out there that can be useful as well. So, do your due diligence and your research.
Definitely. And, as a mom, I always tell people, whatever company, regardless, no matter what supplement you're taking, whether it be a probiotic or an enzyme or an omega, make sure the product's clean, make sure that company, because, often people will say, oh, I went to some, drugstore, not to say that they don't have decent products there. But again, you want to make sure that you understand what's in that product. And it's either, it's not just a whole bunch of nothing, or it's also not a whole bunch of crap. And sometimes if you look at that label, you might see the word natural flavors. Well, you don't really know what that is. So you want to make sure you call these companies. You want to make sure that if the person on the phone cannot answer that question, then you either get somebody to answer that question or you find another product. Because as a mom, I have tried lots of different supplements from A to Z basically. And when I call up and I ask them, does it have gluten? Does it have dairy? It doesn't list it, but I need to know. And the person says, I don't know, and they can't get me somebody that does know, I am not going to take that product. And so,
yeah, become a label reader.
Yes.
And I know our rule, we list everything that's in our product. Uh, it may say proprietary blend, but underneath that, it'll list out what's in that blend. So we know that it's important to parents dealing with autism. They got to know what's in a product,
And
even the
you even
fillers.
have it on your label here that what's not added to the product, which I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
love,
yeah,
where it says no sugar, no starch, no rice, no dairy, no soy, no wheat, no yeast, no gluten, no artificial colors or flavors or animal. Sorry, my brain, I can't see really. Basically, probably nothing else bad. It's like it's small
yeah.
writing and
No,
a like.
it's
So
important to know because we don't want anyone buying our product and then feeling like they haven't been that they that we were hiding something. We don't do that.
yeah,
Um, and you have to know wording. No added means it wasn't added to the formula. But enzymes being enzymes and any supplement being a supplement, there are some things that we have no control over as a company and manufacturers, even though it's where the enzymes are fermented, they may dilute the activity to a standardized amount. So they may add stuff like maltodextrin. So a company that says, and it's not just enzymes, and every enzyme company gets their enzymes pretty much from the same 3 or 4 sources. So the difference is in the combination and the amount of enzymes in a product. And it's the same way with probiotics as well. There's not that many probiotic manufacturers. So they all get them from the same source. Um, but what's added in, some of the things you see at mass market stores, they don't even know about autism. So they throw in, you know, rice or gelatin or things like that parents with autistic kids tend to try to restrict, try to stay away from. So yeah, it takes a little bit of investigation and such. So there's some things we can't avoid, but also say that even enzymes are grown on, well, enzymes are derived from, excuse me, from fungal organisms. So you say the word fungus, and oh my gosh, fungus, I'm taking fungus? No, no, these are highly purified enzyme proteins, and there's no fungal, you can't get a fungal infection, there's no spores, there's no toxins, the enzymes are tested for purity and safety. So no, we're not going to put out something out there that's dangerous. And if there's some cautions out there, yeah, we'll tell them. We have no problem telling you what the issues are. So yeah, we can't change everything, but what we can control, we try to make it as good as possible.
well, thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Houston. I think that, I mean, I love talking about probiotics, prebiotics, and enzymes, and I think everyone watching really got a better understanding. And again, guys, it's not just for your kiddos, it's for everybody in the family. Gut health, I think that we're just really learning now in 2020. I'm hearing it more and more and more, is becoming to the general public of, hey, what's your gut health like? What's your gut health? I don't remember hearing this as much in the past, other than in the autism community. We've been talking about it for quite some time, but the general public is now understanding that gut health is probably the most important thing that can happen. And without gut health, nothing else is going to work. So, I love this conversation. I know we're going to have more conversations throughout the year. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Until next time. Bye, guys.